Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We do apologize for that issue. Over 100 Guyanese, including university lecturers and students, civil society activists, and representatives of organizations that represent communities across the country, have sent a list of detailed questions to the EPA to be answered in the Environmental Impact Assessment for the Yellowtail project. Yellowtail is poised to be the fourth development project in the Stabroek Block by Exxon's subsidiary, ESSO. The question in the public submission covered climate impact, harm to the ocean, the danger of well blowout, flaring, noise discharge into the ocean, and whether ESSO has the financial resources to carry out Yellowtail and safety decommissioning the wells when production stops. The submission of the EPA, that should be the submission to the EPA, reminds that the well blowout by British multinational BP in April 2010 had devastated the Gulf of Mexico and cost the oil companies $468 billion, noting that a well blowout could have an impact on the Caribbean economies and environments. The submission asks certain questions about ESSO's ability to prevent and mitigate a blowout. It also asks whether ESSO, a limited liability company, will compensate the Caribbean countries for any damage to the tourism and fishing sectors in the event of a blowout. And sticking with oil, ExxonMobil discovered yesterday that it made another discovery, the 20th to be exact, in the Stabroek Block. The latest find was made at the Longtail 3 well, which encountered 230 feet of net pay, including newly identified high-quality hydrocarbon-bearing reservoirs. It should be noted that ExxonMobil will be able to reap the maximum benefits from its investors from the development of the Longtail 3 discovery, among others, thanks to the loopholes in the PSA covering the Stabroek Block. Kaieteur would have exposed via an extensive study in 2019 that the PSA has some of the world's worst provision when compared to 130 other deals. For example, the PSA says that the government of the day must pay the oil giants income tax out of the country's share of the profits from the Stabroek Block project. However, none of the 130 PSAs examined by Kaieteur had this type of agreement. You can get the full details in today's Kaieteur News. Meanwhile, President Irfan Ali, during an outreach to Region 6 yesterday, announced that the countrywide flooding situation is now considered a Level 2 disaster. This, according to the head of state, is based on the advice of the Civil Defense Commission. According to the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency's regional response mechanism, a Level 2 event is one in which a nation's capacity to respond is not overwhelmed, but external assistance is required. The affected state may or may not declare a disaster. President Ali further said that this government is working on a supplementary provision to take the Parliament for more resources and monies to be available to assist with the current disaster and its after effects. Meanwhile, before being sentenced for robbing a man, a 28-year-old laborer appeared in the Georgetown Magistrates Court and told the court that, "I'm guilty, that's it." The defendant, Dwayne Besford of Grove East Bank, Demerara, appeared before Magistrate Ann McLennan to the answer to the charge read to him. Besford pleaded guilty to the charge, which states that on June 3rd at Water Street, Agricola, while in the company of another and armed with a handgun, he robbed Ryan Kalinda of his iPhone 5S, valued at $150,000. A Samsung A20s valued at $145,000 and $48,000 in cash. Besford also told the court that he does not have a gun. The chief magistrate then sentenced him to 10 months imprisonment. You're listening to us right here on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Still to come, more charges for Lowenfield, Mingo, and Myers. Linden woman beaten to death by a mentally ill son. And first Guyanese woman selected for U.S. Air Force Army. Stay tuned to stay informed.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues, immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield, Deputy Chief Elections Officer Roxanne Myers, and Region 4 Returning Officer Clement Mingo have been slapped with 2 new charges in relation to the March 2020 elections. The 3, who are already facing multiple elections fraud charges, yesterday failed to appear in court to answer to 2 joint conspiracy charges. The matter was called in the Georgetown Magistrates Court before Principal Magistrate Sherdal Isaac Marcus. The charge alleges that between March 2, 2020 and August 2, 2020, they conspired with each other, together with former APNU AFC Coalition Minister and current chair of the PNCR, Valda Lawrence, coalition activist Carol Smith Joseph, Chevron February, Enrique Ivan, Dennis Bob Cummins, Michael Miller, and others to defraud the electors of Guyana by declaring a false account of votes for the March 2020 elections. The trial was not in court when the matter was called, and as a result, Principal Magistrate Isaac Marcus issued 3 summons before adjourning the matter to June 29, 2021 at 11 hours. In some sad news, the battered body of a 56-year-old woman was discovered by Linden police in her Caracara Mackenzie Linden home on Tuesday morning. Dead is Wanda Wilson, also known as Sheila Wilson. The main suspect in the murder is her son, Jose Ajayad, of the same address. He is currently in custody, assisting with an investigation. The police were summoned to the house by a friend of the family who was asked by the woman's brother, who lives overseas, to check on her since she is mentally ill. The friend said that when he visited the home, the son approached him at the door but was not allowing him to the building. He was acting very suspicious. He said he peeped into the house and the entire place was ransacked. According to police, the victim's body was discovered in a bedroom on a bed with a door on top of it. The body was examined for mark of violence and the head and face appeared to be smashed in. Emanuela Desir of Georgetown is the first female from Guyana to attend the U.S. Air Force Academy in the U.S. In the release, it was noted that she attended a pre-departure ceremony at the U.S. Embassy, which included representatives from the military liaison officer. Ms. Desir, according to the release, will receive a full 4-year scholarship to the academy, sponsored by the U.S. government. Only 15 international students per year are admitted to the academy from around the world. Ambassador to the United States of America to Guyana, Sarah Ann Lynch, praised Ms. Desir's strong desire to serve her country in the area of science and noted her plans to return to Guyana to work in the field of green energy. Meanwhile, Deputy Chief Elections Officer Roxanne Myers has initiated legal proceeding against Attorney-at-Law and PPC Member of Parliament Sanjeev Dattadin and online media entity Newsroom, claiming in excess of $150 million in damages for libel. According to the court document drafted by her lawyer Nigel Hughes, the DCO is suing for $150 million in damages in relation to a news interview done on March 6, 2020 and published by Newsroom on that same date. According to Myers, in that interview, Dattadin used words to the effect that the Deputy CEO has been saying that no one is allowed to serve any orders, and the DCO is still refusing to let anyone in the building, and specifically refusing to allow the marshals to serve, which was meant to convey that she in effect acted illegally, corruptly in the performance of her duties, and barred court marshals from serving legal documents of operatives of GCOM. Myers said too that it is safe to say that Dattadin, as well as a Newsroom, intended to convey to the public that she was acting above the law. A day after he escaped from the Lusignan prison, Andrew Chung was yesterday returned into police custody by his sister and fiancé. On Tuesday 26th, old Chung, along with Shazim Kyle, escaped from the prison's quarantine section. Around 7 hours 30 Tuesday, during the unlocking of the quarantine section by prison ranks, it was observed too that they were accounted for. The Guyana Prison Service stated that the Chung is expected to be charged for escaping from lawful custody. Still in hiding is 24-year-old Kyle of 53 Shieldsang, West Coast, Berbice. Back in 2016, he was sentenced to life imprisonment after he was found guilty of murdering 19-year-old Shaniza Mohammed. 12 hours 25 in Guyana, right across the Eastern Caribbean. We turn our attention to your COVID-19 update. The Ministry of Health yesterday announced that a 79-year-old man from Region 4 who tested positive for COVID-19 has died. His death has now brought the country's COVID-19 death toll to 417. According to the daily COVID-19 dashboard, there are 134 new cases, taking the total number of confirmed cases to 17,939. 20 patients are in the COVID-19 ICU, 99 are in institutional isolation, 1,566 in home isolation, and 4 are quarantined institutionally. To date, a total of 15,837 recoveries have been recorded. And with that, before we wrap things up here on your main newscast, we turn our attention to page 7 of the Kaieteur News that is dedicated to being blunt. Is it too much for us to ask for national unity in a democratic society, especially at a time when we are faced with a pandemic and a natural disaster? Without unity, our nation could become so divided that notion of being each other's keeper will be dependent only on shared affiliations. Our nation in this 21st century cannot afford to embrace division, which only our nation in the 21st century cannot afford to embrace division, which only serves to stifle progress. Maybe the rains have come to remind us that together we stand, but divided we fall. We at this publication and this newscast calls on the leaders of this nation from both sides of the divide to join forces to truly unite Guyana. And with that, we've come to the end of your main newscast right here on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Let me remind you that you can get the full details of these stories and much more by picking up a copy of the Kaieteur News at a newsstand near you, or head across to our website at kaieteurnewsonline.com. I'm Joshua Van Sleckman. Thank you for joining us, encouraging you to practice social distancing and to wear your face mask, and most of all, practice good hand hygiene. So long.
Join Guyana's first Extractive Sector Transparency Virtual Forum from June 7 to 11 for an opportunity to learn about and discuss Guyana's ongoing pursuit of good governance and transparency in the extractive sector. The week-long forum would feature local and international presenters and highlight resources and tools to strengthen transparency, increase advocacy, and provide opportunities for sharing knowledge and experiences about Guyana's extractive sector. Hear from the Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Vikram Bharat, Ambassador of the United States of America, Sarah Ann Lynch, and experts in the field. Register now at geitw@padf.org. Sponsored by USAID, implemented by